Hey, my IBMOR brothers, back again. And I've got 3 or 4 articles about black men and Trump that I want to read, but they're longish. So I might read the other 2 or 3 later, but I'm going to start with this one in the Washington Post. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's, like I said, longish, and I don't want to read that long of an article, especially on a podcast, and drone on because, after a certain length of time when you start reading a podcast, either you sit down and really edit it like you're editing a book on tape, or you just read the portions that you want to read and then keep going. So I'm going to read parts of it, but it highlights something that we've been talking about for years. Lately, illustrious doctors that have graced us with their presence on YouTube in the manosphere, especially Dr. Neal, has been talking about black male independence. And it's something that the so-called Manosphere 1.0 actually hinted at and started to develop under 2.0. And now it's coming to fruition in this 2020 election. I think it's had its coming out party. Thanks no small part to the queens of the gynocracy doing their thing. So we're going to read parts of this Washington Post article. The link will be in the description if you want to read the rest of it. And it's called What's Happening Out There with Black Men and Trump. At one point, Trump offered a retort that got at something that has been cause for no small amount of worry among Democrats in the Biden campaign in the last few weeks. Tens of thousands of black men, mostly in jail. And you know what? They remember it, because if you look at what's happening with the voting right now, they remember that you treated them very, very badly. Just take a look at what's happening out there, Trump said. Black voters overwhelmingly back the Democratic Party in presidential elections more than any other group, especially black women. But while the large majority of black men are also voting for the vice president to America's first black president, some data shows Trump is on track to perform as well, if not better, with black male voters this year, compared with 2016. Nearly 1 in 5 black men approve of the job Trump is doing, according to a recent Gallup survey. And about 10% of black men are leaning toward Trump, according to the latest Pew Research data. A couple of recent incidents involving celebrities ignited social media uproars and exacerbated worries over this for Democrats last week. Hip-hop artist 50 Cent expressed his support for Trump on social media after realizing that as a multimillionaire, he would be taxed at a much higher rate under Biden administration than if Trump remained in the Oval Office. Vote your interest, right? And hip-hop artist Ice Cube raised eyebrows last week when Katrina Pearson, a senior advisor for the Trump campaign, tweeted that the longtime critic of police violence against black Americans was working with the Trump administration to connect with black voters. Ice Cube later said he had conversations with the campaign, but denied that he was endorsing Trump, a candidate who has repeatedly defended law enforcement in conversations about police brutality. The idea that black voters take their cues from rappers is rooted in stereotypes about entertainers being the most influential voices in black America. Entertainers are influential in any society. Don't get it twisted. That's why they use them to endorse candidates. That's been so from the very beginning. Even when it comes to issues of policy and politics. When longtime Trump supporter Kanye West launched his own presidential bid, some feared that the hip-hop artist would take black votes from Biden. That hasn't come close to happening, polls show, and that it might not happen with Ice Cube or 50 Cent. I agree with that. The question then is whether either of them is representative of openness among other black men to Trump. why Trump might be resonating with that group, and whether he will do so in enough numbers to sway the election in what might be a close race in swing states. I want to say something real here, just as an addendum before I finish reading some of this, is that artists, hip hop artists, actors, no matter what color they are, they have fans of all colors. And that's the hidden thing. We think we're in a bubble. But Ice Cube said 83% of his sales were white. So when Ice Cube says fuck the police, the reason that white people are afraid of that is because their white children are listening. Ice Cube has lots and lots of white fans that listen to him. So it's not just black men that will be swayed, it's also white male voters that will be swayed. Anyway, a big surprise of 2016 exit polls for many Americans was the revelation that Trump won the highest percentage of black male voters, 13% of any GOP candidate in recent history. Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton by far won the majority of black male voters with 82%, but Trump's stronger than expected performance with the demographic revealed that the president was in a better standing with black men than many expected. That's also something that Roland Martin actually said. So it's admitted. Even Roland Martin agrees with the 20% of black male voters might be swayed. Supporters of the president would argue that this support is the result of Trump's controversial yet often repeated claim to have done more for black Americans than any other president in American history besides perhaps Abraham Lincoln. That is a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. That is not true. Eisenhower and Johnson probably did more for black Americans than Trump has. You can't even argue that. The civil rights movement did more for black people in the last 100 years than any other period. And Trump was not of age at that time, okay? You have to give it to Eisenhower first and then maybe Johnson second, okay? But that's Trump, okay? This is last one I'm going to read. For example, NFL legend Herschel Walker defended Trump against accusations of racism at the Republican National Committee convention in August. But some black male voters may be drawn to the same thing many Trump supporters find attractive, a worldview that America of yesteryear was a country at its greatest on cultural issues. And because of this, some black male support for Trump is a repudiation of a society that increasingly rejects the sexism, misogyny, and homophobia that are often prevalent in traditional ideas about manhood. Brittany Cooper, my favorite crunk professor, a women's studies associate professor at Rutgers University, elaborated on this point while talking to the Post Jonathan Capehart on the Cape Up podcast. There is a way that many black men have been made to believe that because white supremacy has worked on them, primarily by restricting their access to the spoils of manhood, to the money, and to the political power, to even the sort of noble power of protecting their own women. For a lot of black men, their racial freedom aspiration is just to be equal to white men, which is to say they want to be patriarchs or male dominant in the way that white men are. That is the reason that most black men are actually turning a new leaf and looking at the Republican Party, not because of Trump, not because of what he's done, because of what Brittany Cooper just said right there. The numbers have led the Trump campaign to invest even more in connecting with black male voters. That's a switch, a demographic that some argue has been somewhat forgotten by the Democratic Party in the 2020 election. That is true. Because of black voters' long support for the Democratic Party, there is an assumption that the party need not work as much for black American support. But the Black Swing Voter Project, a new study by American University, shows that younger black voters, and particularly young black male voters, are not as much of a sure thing for the Democratic Party and could ultimately decide to stay home at rates that could cost liberals the election. Knowing this, the Trump campaign has responded by aggressively targeting these younger black men with less of a voting history. The president has spoken at prison graduation ceremonies, welcomed a number of black athletes and the celebrities to the Oval Office to endorse him, and opened outreach sites in predominantly black neighborhoods in swing states to increase the campaign visibility. I applaud him. I applaud him for doing that. I really do. I said, that is acknowledgement of the importance of the black male vote. And I think I know they listen to the manosphere, because you got to remember all these campaigns and campaign advisors and people like that listen and watch social media like everything else, and basically have all these AIs that bring back data, so they know that the black male vote is vulnerable and basically can lean to people that support them, and rightfully so. So basically, with the manosphere, which has initiated black male independence, and now you have a party that is supporting black male independence and actually putting it on front stage, it's causing a rift. And you can only abuse a certain segment of people for so long before they decide that they want to go in another direction, if they have the choice to do so. Now, for a long time when I was young, you really had no choice, because the Republican Party didn't want you and they didn't court you. So you were stuck with the Democratic Party. Same thing with society as far as choosing other women. It wasn't just black women that kept you down and shamed to stick with them. It's also the rest of the society. But the thing is that as this society is becoming more homogenous, blending together, mixing, black males, young black males have more choice. And they have a society that supports their choice. So now they are not stuck with sticking with black women. It is what it is. It's just the nature of the society that you're in. It's just the nature of admixture. It's not only normal, but it's just a matter of history, but a matter of basically physics. Two incongruous things coming together, eventually over time they'll start to mix and blend, and that's what's happening. And black males now, or because of social media, without gatekeepers, are basically announcing their choice. They're not rejecting anybody, and that is the common fallacy that black women want to say or want to speak on, that we're rejecting them. We're not rejecting them. We're just choosing other people. There's a difference. They always tell black men, choose better. In other words, you're stuck in a relationship that you don't want, or with women that you want. I always say, okay, you broke up because you didn't choose better. So now black men are choosing better. But the thing is, it's not to choose better that they want. They said choose better women amongst their group. They didn't say go outside the group and choose. Now black men are actually going outside the group and choosing. And now they're going outside the Democratic Party and choosing. And the Democratic Party and black women do not like it. And they have been chastising us for the last 2 years, because black men have actually announced that they have a free mind, an independent mind. And just like black women, they can choose. They can be strong and independent. So this is the year of the strong and independent black man. BMI, as Dr. Neal always says. Forget about what you've learned. Throw away all the training that you've had, conditioning that you've had that tied you down and tied you to the wrong choice that kept you in servitude. Throw off the shackles, brothers. BMI. And this is just the beginning, regardless of who gets voted in, regardless of what election, because, a small group of black men are not going to determine an election, no matter what anybody says. There are bigger forces out there that will actually do that. But at the end of the day, when we come out on the other side, we should keep this momentum of independence. It ain't 1776, but it's 2020, the year of black male independence. Mark it on the calendar. Mark it in history. But with that, I've gone on long enough. I'll jump off here. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.